The classic anime, Neon Genesis Evangelion, is a cerebral, metaphysical, visceral experience, filled with ultraviolence of the physical and psychological kind. On the surface, the show was a 26-episode run in Japan's mecha genre of anime, but I was surprised with the release of the films, how tonally altered they have become with the leap to the big screen. The plot sounds pretty typical of anime. Shinji, a 14-year-old boy, is conscripted to pilot a giant robot. Fights even larger aliens, called angels, that are hell-bent on destroying the human race. Japanese have been pumping out this kind of fodder since the 1960s. A team of fighter pilots band together in order to use cool weapons and transform into different vehicles to defeat evil, growing stronger as a team with each successful mission. But what if piloting a mech wasn't what everyone said it cracked up to be? What if it was a horrifying nightmare, where even taking simple steps can lead to catastrophic consequences in battle? A series where the lead character doesn't become more stoic and righteous with each episode. But becomes increasingly introverted and spirals into a web of PTSD. The films, on the other hand, have bigger budgets to display more impressive hardware. But it just feels so different, and not in a good way. The most obvious one is that Shinji comes across as more assertive and positive in general. The films rob the story of the impending doom that he is unable to escape, specifically when it comes to certain story beats that have been omitted. This is best demonstrated in the second episode of the series, The Beast. The opening Eva battle is such a disaster that as soon as Shinji is stabbed, the shot silently cuts to him lying in a hospital bed. We immediately sense that something is wrong. Shinji doesn't remember what happened after being attacked. Everybody around him is despondent or avoiding conversation. Naturally, Shinji thinks he's let them down and becomes even more withdrawn. This all gradually builds up to the reveal that Shinji blacked out after being stabbed and went completely bonkers, turning the Eva into a feral beast. The scene brilliantly demonstrates his journey into the belly of the whale. Joseph Campbell describes it as representing the final separation from the hero's known world and self. The hero, instead of conquering the power of the threshold, is swallowed into the unknown and would appear to have died. In this case, Shinji's fear of death and his capacity to murder are laid bare. The reflective scenes between the blackout and what happened are critical to Shinji's character development. However, the movie cuts this out completely. We cut from the angel stabbing Shinji to the Eva going full beast mode. After Unit 1 has finished killing the angel, we cut to the command deck with a one-line explanation from Masato, Director of Nerve Operations, who says,
"It's true nature."
Weak as piss. The audience has no real sense of what this means, outside of just action for the sake of action. Without those meditative scenes between Shinji and Masato from the series, the sequence lacks anything resembling a dramatic character beat, so the whole beast mode loses any impact it originally had. It's just a gigantic monster movie slugfest, which is how the rest of the films move forward, from one action scene to the next. Which brings me to my next point about the attempts to turn the franchise into a series of movies. It became obvious, as the TV series progressed, that the concept was much better suited to the weekly, episodic format. Each episode had a clear objective, followed by a challenge, and then a resolution. Episode 9 is a great example of this, where Shinji and Asuka have to learn to work together through the most natural form of self-expression, the power of dance. By the end of the episode, this finishes with a climatic kaiju battle, where this newfound knowledge comes in handy and forms organically with the plot. As the episode unfolds in this manner, the hero's journey feels like part of a much larger story. Speaking of the hero's journey, I struggle to think of a narrative that is more interested in limiting the supernatural aid of the heroes. These humongous robots are often seen running through the city attached to these bulky and awkward power cords that restrict their movement. The clock starts ticking, and they can only continue to operate for a short period of time. This serves two purposes even though it's disguised as one. Firstly, these limitations heighten the tension and make the confrontations with the enemy much more dramatic. Even before the fisticuffs are started, you know the angels have a distinct advantage. Secondly, the show initially keeps you in the dark about why only particular children going through the puberty blues can pilot a certain Ava. In our world, I mean the real world, this is generally a ploy for children and teenagers who are the biggest consumers of anime in Japan. To cut a long story short, the more little critters watching the show, the more action figures the parents will buy. So while I was watching it for the first time, I thought this was never going to be explained for obvious reasons. However, it's explained with a bit of semi-compelling pseudoscience. The Avas are fused with the human soul, and it's always the pilot's dead mother. Throughout the show, it foreshadows this with visual clues such as the pilots being shunted into the Avas with an entry plug. They're all suspended in an embryonic fluid that helps them breathe like air. Naturally, the cumbersome power cables could pass for an umbilical cord. Once that conduit between the Ava and pilot is broken, the mother will do anything to protect their child. So the battles aren't just superficially cool, they reveal something about the character's internal conflict as well. In the films, the action serves only a perfunctory objective, along with the technobabble on the command deck, which is where the television series broke from tradition in the mecha genre. Rather than being a show about mankind defending itself against alien invaders, facilitated by robots that can sell more kids' toys, Evangelion focused on the psychological development of its three main protagonists. In the show, all three are rejected by the paternal figure in their life, which manifests as an Oedipus complex as the show progresses. For those not in the know, Oedipus, a character from Greek mythology, killed his father so he could marry his mother. Asuka's mother develops a neurological injury after an experiment gone wrong and becomes completely disassociated from reality. Unable to identify her own daughter, Kyoko cares for a doll that she believes is Asuka. The family situation spirals further out of control as Asuka's father starts an affair with her mother's doctor. Eventually, Kyoko commits suicide and Asuka is left to be raised by her father and his mistress in a broken home. She develops a more narcissistic personality and tries overtly to get the attention of an older man. Shinji was abandoned by his father as a small child, Gendo Akari, who is the head honcho of the Ava program. At the start of the series, Gendo recruits him to pilot Unit 1, but left to live alone, he moves in with Masato, who is both a roommate and mother figure to him, until she's not. In the series, it's more suggestive than the films, but what starts out as love in general among a family eventually evolves into something more incestuous. The Oedipus complex deepens with Rei, who is contained within the body of Shinji's dead mother, Yui Ikari. She's a clone brought back to life. She floats through the series without much personality or emotion. However, Rei shares a close relationship with Gendo, who treats her a lot like a daughter, showing her affection and care that he has denied his own son. Once Shinji finds out that Rei is a clone, he feels obligated to protect her from his father, which brings us back full circle to the Avas that they pilot. They're a shell that contains their dead mother's souls. The giant robots have a mental connection with their respective pilots, but none of the protagonists can have a tangible relationship that they've yearned for since being abandoned as small children.